Hey, I'm John Cannell. Today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making some easy, amazing cinnamon rolls. So let's get started. First off, in the bowl of your stand mixer, add 1 cup or 240 mils of warm milk. It should be about 110 degrees. And if the bowl of your mixer was ice cold, go ahead and either microwave it or run it under some hot water and then pour it out so all the heat doesn't get leached out right away. To help wake our yeast up, I'm adding 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. I also want 1 packet or 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, not instant yeast. This lets you do a double rise. If you use instant yeast, that only gives you 1 rise before the yeast are like, I'm done, I did my job, there's no more. So whenever you're making something with yeast, make sure you triple check the label and use the correct kind. Give this a mix, and we're gonna set this aside just for about 5 minutes or until it's frothed up. If it doesn't froth up, your yeast are not okay and you need to start over again. You cannot use bad yeast. While our yeast rises up, we're going to get our dry ingredients together. So into a large bowl, I'm measuring out 4 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour. That's 560 grams. I'm using a scale for this because that'll give me the best results. You want your cinnamon rolls to have as little flour as possible and still hold together. I also want to measure out 1/3 cup or 73 grams of light brown sugar, and this stuff is so prone to having lumps. Make sure you just crumble that up. If you're measuring this with a measuring cup, you really have to pack it down and make those lumps all the worse. So if you're doing that, really make sure that you crumble it up in your hands. Look at that, ridiculous. Your mixer would have to work so hard to break that up. I also want 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. I'm also adding in 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. If you have any other favorite spices you'd like, totally feel free to use those. I could see a lot of things like allspice or cardamom being great in here. Just use a 1/4 teaspoon. You also want to melt 1/2 cup of butter, so go ahead and pop that into a microwave-safe bowl and go at 50% power in 10 to 15 second bursts. While you're waiting for your yeast to bloom, go ahead and give your dry ingredients a nice mix just to distribute everything and hunt around for brown sugar lumps. My butter's melted and my yeast has risen, so let's add all of this into our mixer and get to work. You can use a hand mixer if you want for this recipe. You'll just be standing over the bowl for a while. And if you really want, you could do this all by hand. When I make pizza with the boys, I have them do everything by hand, and it's a really nice way to just take some time in the afternoon and have a tactile moment. 1/2 cup or 113 grams of melted butter, pour that all over. This, of course, will give you so much buttery richness and really make your dough just pillowy soft. It's gonna be great. 1 large egg, 1 tablespoon of vanilla goes a long way. This will make this so nice. Pop your mixer on low, let this dough come together, and once you have like a nice shaggy mixture, it can go all the way up to medium, and you'll be kneading until this dough is tacky but doesn't stick to your fingers. That's the test, and I'll show you what it looks like. My dough has come together, up to medium low, and this will be going for about 8 to 10 minutes, kind of depends on your mixer. Just keep an eye on it. At the 8-minute mark, it's a nice time to take a look at your dough and see how it is. It's smooth and silky, but, oh, that's nice. So it feels sticky or tacky, but it's not sticking to my clean fingers, which means that it's done and ready to rise. Grab a big bowl and lightly oil it, just using your fingers to push the oil up to the edge. Transfer that dough over. I like to turn the dough over just once so the oiled part's on top. Loosely cover your bowl, and we're gonna pop this into a warm place to rise until it's doubled in size. There are so many delicious things in here like butter and milk that your yeast has to work a little bit harder. It'll be 1.5 to 2 hours until it's doubled. Just be patient because it's totally worth it. There you go. Towards the end of your rise time, we're gonna make our filling. It is so easy, but criminally delicious. In a medium bowl, we're gonna combine 1/2 cup or 110 grams of brown sugar. And I also want 1.5 tablespoons of cinnamon. By the way, 1/2 tablespoon is 1.5 teaspoons. Grab a fork and we're just going to mix this together. If you wanted to, you could add so many things to this. Think of this as your blank slate. Do you wanna have some finely chopped toasted pecans? Yes. You could have some orange zest in here, other spices you love like allspice or cardamom. The list goes on, so feel free to personalize with your favorites. As soon as our filling's mixed up, we're gonna set this aside, lightly flour our countertop, and get ready to spread our dough. Just about 2 hours later, my dough has doubled in size. Look how beautiful that is. We're gonna dump this out onto a lightly floured counter and roll it into a 12 by 24 inch rectangle. And if you want, you could totally use a pastry mat for this. It'll make getting things up really foolproof. Okay, the little tip is that you always want the dough to be upside down, meaning the side that's dried slightly is on the countertop. It'll make things really easy. This did a 360 or a 180, so it did a 180. It's trying to sabotage our delicious cinnamon roll experience. Luckily, this dough is so rich and buttery that it really sticks to itself. That's a nice thing. With my floured hands, I'm patting and shaping it first. You don't really need to do that much rolling. Right, everybody? So we said 12 by 24. Oh, look, perfect, 12, but it needs to be longer. This tailor's tape is one of my best friends in the kitchen. You're my best friend. Now, you might be wondering, how will we get this delicious filling to stick to our amazing dough? The answer is 6 tablespoons of the softest butter a cow could make. So for this, you don't want it to be room temperature. You want it to be very well softened, meaning with just a gust of wind could make an indent. So this is lovely in room temperature. I'm gonna pop this into the microwave on half power for 10 seconds until it's like almost melted. Not melted, but just a hair's breadth away. Much better, here we go. So you can see with the spatula, it's so soft. I'm gonna dot the butter over various parts of my dough. And now it's time to spread things out into a nice even layer. You do want to really make sure that your butter is soft here though, only because if it's a little too hard, you could kind of like press into the dough and make it too thin or even tear it. Oh my gosh, I can smell all the components, the dough, the butter, and the cinnamon sugar, and it's intoxicating. That's the cologne I would wear.
Jean by Preppy.
Bring the butter right up to 3 of the edges, but leave 1 of the short edges blank. Just give it half an inch of no butter. My surface is all buttered up, so now it's time to spread my cinnamon sugar over a nice even layer. Oh, it looks so beautiful. I love this. My cinnamon sugar's on. I'm gonna spread this into a nice even layer with my hands. Now we're ready to roll. So this side with less butter and cinnamon sugar is your end. The other long side is your beginning. So you're going to fold that edge over and then start rolling with your clean hands and forearms. Roll that over. And as you roll, you can tighten it up a bit. Grab a 9 by 13 inch baking dish. I'm gonna butter the side and bottom really lightly. I want to cut this log into 2-inch slices, so just mark things off before you get to cutting. Now grab a length of unwaxed dental floss or string, and you're going to cut sections of it by basically strangling your cinnamon roll. This way you can cut and still get that beautiful spiral without smushing it down. I'm going to set those aside as I cut because there is a crucial step if you want them to look pretty. If you've ever seen cinnamon rolls in a magazine or a blog and they look like impossible, like a big spiral coming up, you're like, how do they do that? The food safe way that we're gonna use is by taking the bottom, pushing it up a little bit with your thumb, and then pinching. So you pinch the bottom down. This causes the center to pop up. The non-food safe way they would use, like in a magazine if they're not gonna eat the food, is to pop a little ball of rolled up foil at the bottom, which really puffs them up. But no one wants to pick foil out of their cinnamon roll. So pop it up with your thumb, just a little bit, and then pinch the bottom together and place. Pop, pinch, and place. Make sure to give these guys room to grow because they will be puffing up. Loosely cover, and it's time for a second rise. 1 hour in a nice cozy place, they'll be significantly puffed. In the meantime, preheat your oven to 350 so it's nice and ready. I checked on my cinnamon rolls after an hour and realized that I had not turned on my warming drawer and it's too cold for them to rise. So I gave them a little bit more time after the drawer was on and they've puffed up. These guys are ready to go into the oven, 350 for 20 to 25 minutes or until they're puffed and golden throughout. While our cinnamon rolls are baking, and by the way, they smell so so good, we're making a luscious cream cheese icing. Starting with 2 tablespoons of softened butter into a medium bowl, along with 4 ounces of a softened cream cheese. It should not be cold, it should be on the gooey side. A pinch of salt for contrast, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Mix it up to combine, and then we're gonna add our powdered sugar. Lovely. To sweeten things up and soften this icing, we're also gonna add in 2 cups of powdered sugar. I'm gonna mix this up on low and add 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk as needed. The consistency is up to you. You can have a thicker frosting or a really gooey icing that seeps all the way into your cinnamon rolls. There's a little milk in there. Increase speed to medium just to break up any little balls of powdered sugar you have. That looks perfect to me. It's really gooey, but still has some substance to it. Nice and soft. If you're making this icing in advance, just cover it up until it's ready. My rolls just came out of the oven, so we're gonna spread about 1/3 of the frosting on top so it seeps into all the nooks and crannies. Just use the back of a spoon so you can kind of get all those corners together and add a thin layer of frosting all over the top. That is buttery, tender, gooey, delicious, kissed with cinnamon. I don't know if you could do better than this. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button and check out my breakfast treat playlist.